Hi everyone, it's Alan Rosinski, Metro Manhattan Office Space. Good evening. Well, anybody who's been following Lewis's search for a new space is aware of the latest curveball. I saw it on his video last night. Lewis has backed off from the West 30th Street space. And I'm really curious. I'd like to know, do you think this is justified? Did Lewis reach the right decision? Now, watching his video enabled me to really understand his reasoning. And, I think he maybe took the super's attitude somewhat too personally. He may not have experience with New York City supers, but building personnel in New York City, particularly superintendents, tend to be tough. They're not exactly the white glove type personnel you would find in a luxury hotel like the Plaza Hotel. They're unionized workers. They don't want to be bothered on the weekend. They expect to receive large tips on Christmas, and they're just kind of tough. But I think at the end of the day, it's not going to have much of an impact. If I can express my opinion, which I'm going to do, may get myself into trouble, Super's going to have very little impact on 30th Street because he'll be dealing with a professional construction manager. Now, Lewis also expressed other reservations about potentially an upcoming recession and deals to be had in commercial real estate in New York City. And I don't think anybody knows. It's like predicting the stock market. It's hard to say. We could have another Great Depression. We could have a mild downturn. But I think one thing's for certain. Over the course of a 10-year lease, there'll be fluctuations in the New York City real estate market. There'll be years where the market is very strong. There'll be years where the market is weak. And at the end of the day, Lewis is acquiring a workspace for his staff to make his staff more productive, more comfortable, and to increase business. He's not investing in the stock market. So this is something a little bit different. Now, that being said, if Lewis tells me he's suspending the search for 6 months because he feels there'll be better value, I'm fine with that. If whatever he tells me, I have no allegiance to this particular landlord, though I have a lot of respect for the managing agent. I've known him for many years, and he's a pro, and in my experience, it's possible to make a deal with him. But whatever Lewis decides, I'll show him alternative space. I'll give him an overview of the market. I'll be glad to submit offers on other spaces. But I do think West 30th Street is a good opportunity because the price per square foot is approaching the price of what would be paid for offices in the area. And generally, retail has a very, very substantial premium. Now, in terms of alternative better values, it might be possible to find a smaller space. So the monthly rent would be maybe perhaps somewhat less, and not by much because the price per square foot on West 30th Street is low. It may, and this is important, be possible to find a space which is in better condition and would require less work. But I still think West 30th Street is worth exploring. And I do know that Lewis today did meet with the managing agent, and they had a good meeting. And that I do believe that, and I hope that lease comments will be forwarded to the landlord's attorney. The risk on this deal, I see the risk as the cost of construction being higher than Lewis anticipated, and the time for a build-out taking longer. And there's only 3 months free rent here. So that's something which has to be watched. But I think before anything is done, before any decision's made, it's important to get construction estimates, which I think now arrangements have been made for contractors to get access on Wednesday, and we'll see what the situation is. Now, one thing which Lewis has going in his favor is from a landlord's perspective, his business would be perceived as a very stable business because what's going on in the retail market is retailers are being decimated by Amazon. And the restaurant industry is notoriously unstable. You can get a restaurant in a space, they do great for 3 years, and then they're out. So I think a landlord would make efforts to get a tenant like a device repair business in a space. And who knows, maybe if the cost of the build-out is far above what Lewis originally budgeted, it wouldn't be unreasonable to ask the landlord to make some sort of an extra effort in the form of maybe a little more free rent. It's a bit awkward because we've negotiated business terms, so it's like going back to the well. But whatever Louis asked me to do, I will do and attempt to get the most concessions for him because it's the right thing to do. I represent him as a tenant in the same way as the leasing agent represents the landlord. So this is very typical of tenant representation. It's frequent that tenants do change their mind, and you just continue working with them and find alternatives. And sometimes a deal moves forward. It's just part of the process. So I hope this information is been somewhat enlightening, somewhat interesting, useful, and if it has, I would ask you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.